number 7. Today I'm going to be showing you about the piano. You're probably thinking, well, that's what you usually do. Well, I mean, by showing you about the piano, I'm going to be showing you about how the piano works. How, when you hit a key, what does it do to the strings? How do you get the sound? I'm going to explain to you about how the piano is tuned. And yeah, I'm going to go through some things with the piano so that you get an understanding of how this thing works. And I mean, most of you are probably playing on keyboards, but so this might be kind of cool to see how the real thing works. Anyway, so let's get right into it. Alright guys, so here's my piano. It's a Yamaha. This one would be a grand piano, sometimes classified as a baby grand. Now a grand piano stretches out horizontally like this. The strings and everything come out this way. An upright piano goes up and down vertically, whereas all these strings would be taken like that and flipped up. So it's like taking this whole thing and going whoop, boom, like that. That's sort of how it works with an upright piano. Now, there's different classes, and basically the longer the piano gets this way, the better it'll sound in the lower registers, which is like the bass. And usually the higher quality it's made, the more expensive it's going to get too. Also, it'll create a louder sound. So sometimes it's impractical to have a very long piano in your house because it can be so loud that, yeah, it's just like deafening to have in a small room because it's basically meant for a concert hall. Okay, so this one here, there's different models basically, and as they go up in size, there's different models. Sort of like, you can have a BMW and the lower class, like the 3 Series, or you can have like a 5 Series or 7 Series or whatever, right? It keeps going up in price and value and quality. And in piano terms, basically length, action quality, voicing, blah, 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 all these different things. Now, one thing I want to point out is I'm not actually a piano technician. I'm a piano teacher. My profession is teaching piano, teaching music theory, stuff like that. I've been doing that since I was 5. I haven't really studied the piano itself in a technical form, but I do know a thing or two about it. So what I'm going to be doing is giving you guys a basic discovery on what makes up a real piano, how does it work, stuff like that. Just sort of to complete your knowledge or whatever of what you're actually playing and how this thing actually works. Okay, so then maybe you'll be able to go to your friend's house, and if they have a grand piano, be able to point out different things and say whatever, and maybe pretend like you know something, or show off your knowledge. Okay, so usually each piano will have some sort of code for what kind of a piano it is. This is a GC1, and I've covered up my serial number so no one can actually see it. Anyway, okay, so let's just start with the bottom and work our way up. So this right here, this is called the pin block. This has every string is wound up on one of these things, on one of these pins, and it goes down and into a block that it screws into. Now, what are these, where is it getting all the strength? Well, what holds the whole piano together is called the cast iron frame. Now, it would be this, and this, and this, and this, and that, and all the way up there, and over there, and down here. All this is one solid piece of cast iron frame. And what it does is it keeps all the tension from collapsing on itself. Now, one of my piano tuners told me that there is 22 tons of tension inside the piano. 22 tons. If we're going by, I think there's 2 ways to convert tons. I can't remember. There's like metric and imperial, but I believe it's 2,000 pounds per ton. So that would be 44,000 pounds of tension. He told me that if you took all the tension and snapped it off, it would be enough to lift a house off its foundation and drop it again. That's how much force there is. Just snap, pull up the house, drop it back down. That is a lot of force and a lot of tension. So if you ever think, oh, I'm so tense from work, oh, I'm so tense, just think of how tense the piano has to be all the time. So it's this cast iron frame that keeps it all together. Now, as we go up, what's this part? What are these things up here? Well, those are the hammers. Now, they come up and they strike the string. And that, by striking the string, they vibrate the string, and that creates the noise, or the music, depending on if you play this or this. Okay. Now, these things up here, the black wooden things, they are called dampers. Now, what do? Well, I could just say, they dampen the strings. No. They actually, I guess you could say they dampen them. But as I hit the key, the damper comes up. Why? Because there's felt on the bottom of the damper. And what does that do? Well, it silences the key. Not the key, the string. See, look. As long as it's up, the string keeps going and slowly decays, and then the damper comes down, the noise is gone. Pretty cool, huh? Now, as you push the key, basically it pushes a little rod that's attached down lower up, and that pulls this thing up, and as you let go of the key, it drops it down. So that's sort of how that works. The dampers are there basically to turn the piano sound off and on. Well, no, they're not to turn it on. They allow it to keep going. Because if the damper stayed down, right, and you played the piano, oh, this is going to be hard. I can't do it, actually. I don't have 3 hands. Because I need one hand to hold the camera, another to press the key, and another to play the string. So, okay, let's just do this. No, that doesn't work. But do you hear some of them didn't work? I'm basically hitting some strings with my knee. There's no sound there, is there? It's just clicking because the string isn't able to vibrate. Okay, so basically the hammer turns on the noise and the damper turns it off. And the damper coming up allows the noise to begin with. Now there is something called the damper pedal. See these 3 pedals? The one on the right side right here, that one right there, that is the damper pedal. When you push that one down, watch what happens. All these, they go up and down. They all come off. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when you have the damper pedal down, it's the one on the very far right, if you have it down, you can be hitting all these notes and they'll keep going even though my hand isn't on them, because the dampers haven't come off. So in essence, if you're pushing the damper pedal down and you just played the piano, that's what the piano would sound like if there were no dampers. Right? Anyway, so that's the dampers. Now, the thing right above that, right here, now I'm not pointing to this whole thing, but I'm using it as something so you can see that there is a plank of wood, that makes it sound so horrible, just like some sea rack or something. Anyway, this wood underneath the string is called the soundboard. And what that does is it actually amplifies the sound of the strings. So this wood stretches from the top up there all the way over here, and it amplifies the sound of the string. Now without it, the sound of the string would be, well, I've never heard a piano without a soundboard, so I wouldn't know, but I assume that it would sound very unwarm and it would be quiet. Somewhat similar to when you pluck, if you've had an electric guitar and you don't have it plugged into the amplifier, and then you try to go ding, it's very soft and you can barely hear it, right? And it doesn't have much I don't know, texture to it. It's pretty dry. It's just like ding. But if you plug it in, then it's just like or whatever. Yeah, bad singing by me. Anyway, but my point is that without the soundboard, the whole piano doesn't have the sound that it is required. And apparently, I've seen in some videos that it takes about 5 years to to manufacture and to age the soundboard. I'm thinking about the soundboard amplifying, and then I just said that. So, the soundboard is crucial. If you ever crack your soundboard, that's a huge, huge, huge blow to your piano, and you probably never, unless you can replace a soundboard with a new one, it's devastating. It would be sort of like sending a nuclear warhead to a castle. It just annihilates the whole thing, unless, I guess, no, or maybe, like a cruise missile just coming right down the middle and blowing half the castle apart. Anyway, so the soundboard is really critical, so take good care of that. Don't knock on it or do anything to it. You don't want to weaken its structural integrity or anything. I believe the soundboards are usually made out of pine. I might have that wrong, but that's what my memory is telling me right now. Anyway, okay, now another thing is, why are the strings short there and then they get louder and longer and longer and longer all the way to here? Why are they longer in the bass and shorter in the treble? Well, okay, listen to this. Now when I push a key, such as this one, do you hear how the note is sort of repeating itself in a wave? It goes or whatever. Bad singing by me. I don't have a singing voice. But I'll try to emulate it or show you what I mean with my finger. So watch. Right? Now, this key that I just played, this is the A above middle C, which is concert pitch. It's what the violins in an orchestra will tune to. It's 440 hertz. That's the frequency. And that's sort of how speakers and all that run off. They run off frequencies. That's how all sound is actually. It's frequencies and pitch and all that stuff. That's how you get pitch, by frequency. Now, 1 octave above anything, like this, is exactly twice as fast as this, or at least it should be. If your piano is out of tune, then obviously it's not going to be exactly. That's why it's out of tune, because it's not right. So basically, all of the intervals and whatever, all what makes music sound good to our ears isn't so much the notes we play. The notes we play were developed and they are tuned so that it would make mathematical sense to our ears. And that's what sounds good to our ears, is something that coincides with each other. So like they can be divided. It's all math, like this. So at different points, these waves are matching up with other waves. Now if you add in something like this, they're clashing, and one is coming down and another, they never really sync together. And by doing that, it creates, disharmony. Whereas harmony, it's all going together, and they're working together. They might go off a little bit out of track, but then they come back, and like each of the waves. I don't have the capacity to do each key with different fingers all at the same time. That'd be crazy if I could, but I can't. But if you can imagine, the C is going dun, like that, right? And then this C up here is going twice as fast, so it's going dun. So it's matching, because every second wave of this one, they're matching together. Or sorry, every second wave of this one. Now, if you add in these two, I believe, I can't remember what that one is. I'd have to look it up. It's been a while since I looked at it, but I think it's 2/3 or something like that, the speed of this one, whenever you go a fifth up from whatever note you're going to. Can't remember for sure though. But it's getting slower and slower and slower all the way down here. And then twice as fast, 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 twice as fast. So, who knows? Okay, violins, they're really short, right? They have short strings. Now you start look at a double bass, it's got these really long strings. To get that deep sound, it has to have a long string. Now look at these. Long strings, short strings. Long strings, short strings. So these are the short strings, and those are long strings. Sort of like that's the double bass, and that is the violin. Now, technically they're more in the middle there, but another interesting fact is piano actually has the biggest range out of all the orchestral instruments. This is lower than a tuba can go, and this is actually higher than a piccolo can go. So you've got a full range of orchestra on the piano. So, there's that, yeah. Now, that's sort of why it gets bigger this way, is because the longer the string, the slower, I guess, the wave pattern is. I'm not a total technical genius on about all this stuff. My specialty is piano, but I wanted to give you guys a basic understanding of what's going on here. So hopefully this is helping. Alright, so we've covered the cast iron frame, the pin block, the strings, the dampers, the action. Well, actually we haven't covered all the action. The action is extremely complex. Now, I can't actually pull this out because you need a special tool to take this apart, and then what you can do is pull this off, and then you can slide this whole thing out. And you have to be really careful because it's pretty delicate. But my piano tuner actually told me that it's the most complex mechanism built completely of wood, glue, and felt, which sounds funny, and ever made. So I find that interesting. Now, these hammers are actually felt coated, and then they hit the string. And as they get older, they get harder. And when they get harder, it's what you'd hear a bright piano. So bright pianos have hard felt hammers. And basically what you'll do later on is you'll actually put a needle in and tear them up to make them soft again, so that it gives a nice bright, warm, blooming sound. Now another thing, so that's what you'll have to do later on, like your piano tuner will do that for you. Definitely do not do that yourself, get a professional. Now all these things here, now if you'll notice the strings, there's 3 of them. So there's actually 3 strings that are all tuned with the same note here. Why is that? Well, the reason is because these things are so high, they're very soft, like this isn't very loud. Now to be able to compete with this huge, huge, huge string down here, they need 3 of them. It still doesn't completely compete, but it helps basically to even out the sound distribution. So there's 3 strings per key here, and then we get to a point here where there's 2 strings per key. 2 strings, 2 strings, 2 strings, and then down at the very bottom, the last couple, it's just 1 string per key. Those are the big fat strings there. The big. Okay, anyway, so that was just a random thing there. So that's basically the piano in a nutshell here. So we've got like a stand here. We can stand up the case on a grand piano, and having the lid, I guess it's not a case, it's a lid. When the lid is up, you'll get a brighter sound you'll hear. I find that you hear more of the treble and less, and the bass is it's about the same. But when the lid's closed, you hear more bass resonated and less treble, because the bass actually penetrates through things much easier, because it's like powerful, it just shakes you to the core. Whereas the higher, it doesn't really make a difference. So one thing you'll notice with an acoustic piano when you're playing it, if you have a keyboard, is that when you're playing an acoustic piano, you feel it. You just feel it go right through your body. When you hit a big, like some big chords down here, you just feel that go right through your body, and it just vibrates right through you, resonates through your body, and it's a really cool experience. Now there's a couple other things. the reason why, if you play like a chord like this, and it sounds sort of, clamped off, or it just sounds contained. But if you hear this, and I take all the dampers off, why does that sound so different? Well, there's something called inharmonic vibrations. So it's the principle, or I guess it's I'm not sure if it's a law yet, like in science, but it's the idea that a type of frequency finds other basic strings that are on the same frequency, and it interacts with them. So an example is you could actually just play a C chord normally here, just a C chord randomly, and just play that, and it'll send out waves that penetrate. And you could have a piano right next to it, like put it over there or something, just over there, and don't even touch a key. Don't touch a key, but just have the damper pedal up, so you're allowing the piano to be sort of like open to any waves that come in. And when those C waves, or that C chord, goes through the air, the sound carries through, it'll actually hit the other strings on the other piano, even though it hasn't been touched, and then you can make this piano stop, and you can just listen to the other piano, and you'll hear C. You'll hear a C chord resonating through the entire piano that hasn't had a key touch to it. Isn't that interesting? So that's called sympathetic vibrations. So when you open up the whole piano with the damper pedal off, all the strings are ready to be vibrating. So that one string here isn't the only one vibrating. It's vibrating other strings throughout the piano that will basically help sort of fill out the sound to it. Alright, anyway, so that's a little bit on inharmonic vibrations. Sympathetic vibrations, what am I thinking? I said inharmonic. That's not even close. Inharmonic is like the same name for like G sharp and A flat. Anyway. Okay. So yeah, that is a piano in a nutshell. So that's the keyboard, that is the strings, and that. And then there's one other thing that I want to get to. It's the pedals. What do they do? It's pretty easy. So the damper pedal I showed you, I've been showing you. Now the one on the very left, that's called the soft pedal. And what does it do? Well, it makes everything softer. Now, on a grand piano, it actually works the best, because what it actually does is, see all these? Look at those hammers. Now watch this. See how they're going back and forth. So I have the soft pedal depressed, now I let go. Soft pedal depressed, let go. Now watch this. Even the whole keys, watch this. They're moving. You notice it best like here. See how it's moving in? So all the hammers of the entire piano are moving, sliding over to the right. Now why are they doing that? Well, like I told you before, we've got the 3 strings per key, right? We've got 2 strings. Now when we hit this soft pedal, what is it going to do? Boom, it offsets the whole hammer, all the hammers, to the right a little bit, so it actually mishits the strings. So it's got a totally different sound to it. It has basically like a soft, warm, feathery sound, sort of like a soft cotton blanket. That's what I feel when I don't know. That just sounds weird, but yeah, when I put the soft pedal down, it has a really totally different feel to it. And now the whole sympathetic vibrations comes into play again, because what's happening now is you've got one string on each key, on all these strings, not down there though, but down up here, where one string for every piano, every key is open to sympathetic vibration, even the strings that you're hitting. So there's some people that say like all of Chopin music should be played with the soft pedal. Soft pedal is just really amazing on grand piano. It just has such a cool effect. And that's the one on the very left. Now on an upright piano, all it does is it actually just moves the hammers up so they're closer to the keys, the strings. not the keys. Sort of like if you're going to take a full swing with a bat to hit a piñata, or if you're just going to just bunt at the piñata. So you have less motion to go through to get to that piñata. You're not going to have as much power to get there because you won't have that swing through or the follow through. Okay, anyway, so that's that. And then the middle pedal is very unused. There's almost no point in even talking about it, but like I have no socks on. It's hot right now. It's like 30 degrees, so don't blame me. Anyway, so the middle pedal, that one, all it does is whatever notes you have down. Now it does different things on different pianos. That's why it's so useless. On some upright pianos, it puts this felt layer and it reduces the noise so much. It's called a practice pedal. It's used for apartment buildings or whatever, so you wouldn't disturb your neighbor. And it would reduce the sound maybe like 60%. So you'd only get 40% of the sound. Other pianos, with my piano here, it takes all the dampers off the bass section. So it opens up the. That sound cool? Now listen to this without that. So those sympathetic vibrations are really rocking out. Now, on other pianos, like the really, really expensive, like $70,000 pianos, what'll happen is if you are holding down some notes and then you push down the middle pedal, then you can let go of those notes and only those notes will keep going. So it's like having a damper pedal just for certain notes that you're holding down. So the middle pedal is never used, basically. I mean, I've been playing piano for almost 2 decades now, and let's see, I've never used it once in any piece I've ever played. So that tells you about how much I like to use it. Anyway, okay, so I think that wraps up about everything I wanted to talk about. Thanks for watching piano lesson number 7. I hope you guys learned something useful, and I'll see you again in the next lesson. Thanks a lot. Keep practicing. Bye-bye.